Good morning, scholars. Happy Wednesday. Readers, I'm so excited to read with you again today. We're going to have such a great time reading. I know that we just finished reading Aloud, and while we were reading that text, we were focusing on making inferences. We were focusing on putting together clues from the text to figure out what the author isn't telling us. We are going to continue making inferences, but today we get to read a new book. The book that we are reading today is called The Relatives Came. The author is Cynthia Rylant, and the illustrator is Stephen Gamble. And as we read our story today, we're going to make inferences. There are 3 steps to making inferences. When I say go, you're going to tell me what are the 3 steps to making inferences. What are the 3 steps to making inferences? Go. Great, let's go over it together. Step 1, look at what the character says or does. Look at what the character. Yes, scholars, look at what the character says or does. 2, think. Has something like this happened to me? Has something like this happened to me? Think. That's right. Think. Has something like this happened to me? 3, think about what the character wants, feels, or likes. What does the character? That's right. You're going to think about what the character wants, feels, or likes. And as we read our story today, you are going to be making a lot of inferences on your own at home. We made a lot of inferences together the past 2 days. Today, you will be focusing on how can you use the 3 steps to making inferences to make inferences on your own. The relatives game. It was in the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Virginia. They left when their grapes were nearly purple enough to pick, but not quite. I'm already figuring out the setting. Think, what's the setting of the story? They had an old station wagon that smelled like a real car, and in it they put an ice chest full of soda pop, and some boxes of crackers, and some bologna sandwiches, and up they came from Virginia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, before even the birds were awake. They drove all day long and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their almost purple grapes back home. They thought about Virginia, but they thought about us too, waiting for them. So they drank up all their pop and ate up all their crackers and traveled up all those miles until finally they pulled up into our yard. Wow, I'm noticing that we just met some new characters. What characters did we just meet? That's right. I noticed that we just met the other family. There was one family that was on their way to see another family. We just met the other family. We just met the other family. Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us all around their car, pulling us against their wrinkled Virginia clothes, crying sometimes. They hugged us for hours. So the author says they hugged for hours, but it doesn't say why. As a good reader, I know it's our job to make an inference. Why are they hugging for hours? Why does the author say they are hugging for hours? When you make that inference, you will think about what the characters are saying and doing. Think about when has that happened to you before? When have you gone to see family, and why would they be hugging you for hours? What does that tell us about what the characters in the story wanted, felt, or liked in that moment when the author said that they were hugging for hours? Then it was into the house, and so much laughing and shining faces and hugging in the doorways. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get from the kitchen to the front room. Those relatives. And finally, after a big supper, 2 or 3 times around until we all got a turn at the table, there was a quiet talk. And we were in 2s and 3s throughout the house. The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good since there weren't any extras. So a few squeezed in with us, and the rest slept on the floor. Some with their arms thrown over the closest person, or some with an arm across one person and a leg across another person. It was different going to sleep with all that new breathing in the house. The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend the garden, and they fixed any broken things they could find. Wow, I'm noticing that they're doing all sorts of things together. What are some of the things they're doing together? What are some of the things the family is doing together? You're right. I see them eating. I see them playing, planting, cutting each other's hair, doing all sorts of fun things as a big family. But none of us thought about Virginia much. We were so busy hugging, eating, and breathing together. Wow, it looks like they're taking a big family picture. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chests and headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road. Then we crawled back into our beds that felt too big and too quiet. We fell asleep. It looks like the relatives left, and the narrator is saying that they felt like the house was too big and too quiet. We need to make an inference because the author doesn't tell us why the house feels too big and too quiet. That's going to be another inference you make. First think, what are the characters saying and doing? What are the characters saying and doing? Now think, has something like that happened to you? Have you had family visit you? How did you feel when they left? What was it like for you when your family left after visiting? When they had to go back home? What was that like for you? What were you thinking? Looks like you're ready to make your inference. Think about what the characters want, feel, or like. What do the characters want, feel, or like? Great. Now tell me, why does the author say that the house felt too big and too quiet? And the relatives drove on all day long and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their dark purple grapes waiting at home in Virginia. But they thought about us, missing them, and they missed us too. And when they were finally home in Virginia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds, and they dreamed about next summer. the relatives came. Scholars, thank you so much for reading with me. I was so excited as I was listening to you all tell me those inferences throughout the story while we were reading together. That means that you guys are all so ready as good readers to tell me what inferences you made in the story. I can't wait to hear your inferences. Have a good day.